Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of our podcast. It's a pleasure to come your way once again. I hope you are doing well. As always, we have another interesting conversation. My guest, who is joining me from a very far place. So I will let my guest introduce himself. Hello, who do we have here today?
Very good evening to you, the ladies and gentlemen. From the flight deck, it's me, your captain. My name is Kwame Sapon. Joining me this evening is my colleague Albert on this Nimdia flight 130, which will be flying to a very wonderful and exciting destination today. And we will be cruising at 35,000 feet, and the flight time will be 30 minutes. Just sit back, relax, and enjoy. Albert is a very experienced hand. He will be flying us today, and he'll be flying us very safely to our destination. Welcome aboard.
Interesting. This is the first time I've had somebody give such an introduction. You do this very effortlessly. What do you do? Are you a pilot?
Yes, I am. I'm 737 pilot, and I fly for Fly Dubai in the UAE.
That's interesting. What's your rank? Are you a captain?
Yes, I'm a captain.
Is it okay for me to call you Captain Kwame Sapon then?
Yeah, I guess it's okay.
Okay. Okay, Kwame. Thank you so much for joining us today. How is Dubai?
So Dubai is okay. It's been quite hot as expected. The summers are usually very hot, but the temperatures are slowly reducing. So I guess it's a little bit tolerable these days.
Okay. How long have you been living in Dubai?
I've been living in Dubai for 6.5 years.
Wow, you like it there?
Yeah, it's good. It's good. I think the environment here is very multicultural. So you don't feel as left out because there are a lot of other foreigners and nationalities like you. So yeah, I like it here so far.
That's nice. I'm very intrigued whenever I meet people who are in professions that I admire. I'm somebody who is afraid of heights. So I think it's quite brave for anybody to become a pilot. Did you dream of becoming a pilot since your childhood? How did you get into that profession? Let's start from your educational background.
So first off, I didn't always dream of becoming a pilot. I think growing up, I have always been interested in anything, and was just one of them. So I would not say that it was a special dream, but growing up along the line, my father, introduced the idea to me, and I got a little bit excited about it. I won't say the excitement was any higher than any of the other things I was interested in, but eventually when I actually got into flight school is when I really, realized how passionate I was. But to answer your question about my background, I studied aerospace engineering for my undergraduate. And then after that, as we do in Ghana, I did a 1 year mandatory internship with all the national service. And afterwards, I did a little bit of work at the airport. And then I went to flight training in the US.
I know you mentioned that when you started, you had a lot of interest and sort of your dad pushed you into sort of the pilot airline dream. At what point? Was it after your aeronautical engineering degree, or at what point did you decide that this is the path I want to follow?
So let's say just before college, that's when I started to, let's say, make a little bit of plans towards the interest. But even then, I won't say that it was the most exciting thing or the only exciting thing I wanted to do. But I started to prepare myself from that time, which is why I studied aerospace engineering. Because going to college, I had, again, as I said, other interests. But once I decided that I wanted to look a bit more into flying, then I started to prepare myself properly by getting the necessary basics, which is why I studied that.
Would you say you are very ambitious? What type of personality are you? A go-getter?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of everything. I like to consider myself as hardworking, as ambitious, as focused as much as I can.
You said you went to fly school in the US.
Yes.
Why did you choose that path? I mean, I know some people who would, for example, go into the Air Force and fly for a couple years. Why did you choose to go to the US to do your flight training?
Okay. So the Air Force idea was also an option that I considered. Going to the military was not something that excited me in general. And another reason also was that when you're a pilot in the Air Force in Ghana, you need to serve a minimum of 15 years.
Okay.
And after the 15 years, you are free to leave the Air Force and pursue other ambition. And I thought that was too long for me. So then the option was to consider flight training privately, which, of course, so many countries are option. The US stands all among them, but you can consider as well Canada. And quite a number of people also do their training in Europe and also in South Africa. So the US was the place I considered.
Okay. Would you say that you are from a rich home then? Because really, I'm from a little village in Achim. I would never dream of going to a private flight school. How was it difficult getting into the school, or you had a lot of financial support from home? How was that transition from Ghana to the flight school?
Yeah, the finances, it's always the biggest challenge.
Right.
Comes to flight training. I won't consider myself from a rich home, but comes to flight training. I have to, thank my father very much for his support.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't entirely rosy or easy. It cost a lot of, a little bit of loans here and to make that trip happen. But it's not like, someone gave me a check of, okay, take $100,000 and go to flight school. So yes, it was quite tough.
Right. What was the most challenging aspect of your time in the US? Was adapting culturally challenging for you? Was the training difficult?
The training was not difficult in itself. I mean, after I went through 4 years of university, I was very well prepared for what was ahead. So the academic side or the training aspect, I wouldn't say was difficult. And the culture was also okay. I mean, there are a few shocks here and there, but my vision was clear. This is what I wanted to do. So I was easily distracted. If you ask for the challenge in school, it was money. Money was the challenge. The training would normally take about 10 months, but it took me 2 years and 4 months complete.
Why did it take you that long?
Okay. So the way flight school works as compared to traditional forms of education, if you went to college, for example, to pursue your course, if you paid your fees for the academic year or for the semester, you are covered for the period. But in flight training, if you have X amount of money in your account, for every training you do, whether it's a flight training itself or it's what we call oral. Oral is like a training with your instructor, like a one-on-one training with your instructor. Whatever you do, they deduct money from your account. So let's say you have $10,000 in your account and you do a flight today that costs, let's say, $350.
Right.
And you have 9,650. So it goes like that. So once your account is empty, there's no school.
I see. That's a very interesting financial module.
Yeah, it is.
Interesting. And so at what point did you become a proper pilot? I say proper pilot is at what point did you fly your first actual airline with people, and how did it feel when you went into the cockpit?
My first flight, the aircraft was 26th of June, 2013.
Oh, you actually remember the date. That's quite memorable.
Yeah, so, it tells a lot.
Yeah.
It's when you are in flight school, yes, you think you are a pilot or you feel you are a pilot because you're already flying. training aircraft. But once you leave that phase and you join the airline, and it's like you are training to a new phase. So on that day, when you actually sit in an aircraft, passengers, and it's like, okay, wow, okay, finally, all the dream, all the work, everything has just finally come true. So it's quite an exciting feeling.
How many years did it take you to get to that point where you flew your first like commercial airline?
It's airline. Well, I was there. I was among some of the lucky ones. I completed my training in April of 2012,
Mm-hmm.
and I joined the airline in November of the same year.
Okay.
So, but when I joined the airline, I didn't fly immediately until, as I said, in June of the following year. So, roughly it took me, let's say, from April to November to get the job, which is quite remarkable. I think I was lucky to complete my training at the time when the aviation industry in Ghana has had its ups and downs.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I completed my training just at the time that it started to rise up again.
Mm-hmm.
So it was easier for me, let's say 6 months to get it.
Interesting. I'm still very interested in your first flight. I'm trying to play that scenario in my mind.
Sure.
How was it for you? Take me step by step.
I mean, you're nervous. Your first flight is a training flight.
Okay.
And the way we do training so of course, when you are flying a big jet, there's no airline in the world that can afford to just for you to fly the aircraft just for the purpose of training. So it's always a commercial flight, but we have, of course, the necessary checks and balances to make sure that we are operating in an extremely safe environment. So yes, it was a flight to Tamale, I believe. I didn't do the first takeoff. I think I did the flight from Tamale to Accra, the second leg of the day. So it was just a very exciting thing. And of course, everything felt new. The jet aircraft, it flies a lot faster than the training aircraft that you're used to. So initially you feel that you're a little bit behind. But prior to this day, I had the chance to sit in the cockpit on the jump seat observing other people. So that helped me to be better prepared for my flight.
Mm-hmm. What is more difficult, taking off or landing?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I'm not sure which one is more difficult, but I would say landing is more exciting for me.
Like, why is that?
Well, first off, if you take off, it means you are going away. If you are landing, means you're coming back wherever you're going. I think the landing is always exciting. So after flying, staying up there for so long, finally, okay, I get to put this aircraft down and just maybe relax or take a few minutes. It's even better if you are flying. So the landing to your home is always exciting for you because you are closing for the day.
Okay. And I fly quite a bit for work, for conferences and all that, and I am afraid of heights, so flying is very uncomfortable for me most of the time. I'm sure you, as a pilot, clearly, obviously, you are not afraid of heights. Are you afraid of heights?
Well, yes, I am.
You are?
I am. Believe it or not, yes, I am. And
that's an irony.
Absolutely. Well, it is.
How do you fly?
Well, I fly all the time, and I've been doing this for 12 years. I think this is my own theory. I think that maybe the fear of height is in different levels or in different stages. So, for example, if I have to stand on top of a building, I will be very afraid. When I look down, I'll be very afraid. So it's not something that I'll try. But how am I able to fly the plane? Maybe perhaps the building is not high enough. So maybe you should challenge your fear of height. And maybe if you fly, it will be different.
Oh, but does it feel differently then when you are up there? Like when the plane is taking off? Does it feel the fear goes away as the plane takes off?
I feel absolutely fine.
Oh, I see.
I feel absolutely fine.
And you enjoy it?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Wow.
I love it. I will not exchange it to be a civil engineer where I have to stand on top of bridges and on top of buildings.
So there's a lesson in embracing your fears then.
Yes, absolutely. I mean,
I think it's all about life. I mean,
Mm,
take things as suggestions.
mhm.
Take challenge yourself, push yourself a little bit, confront your fears, because maybe whatever you are afraid of, it may not be as you think. Just challenge your fears, challenge yourself. Maybe you can take in some places you have the option to take like a flight, like for entertainment purposes,
Mhm.
quote and unquote, like just one flight. You just try it and see. Maybe your fear of height or whatever fear you have may not be as bad as you think.
Interesting. Um and I speak personally from my own perspective because um like sometimes when I fly, I get a little dizzy and all that, and I've tried to mitigate that with buying headphones and making sure I don't feel the changes in the air pressure and everything. Do you have any physical challenges? Did you have anything in terms of how your body responded to flying initially? Is there a story there, perhaps? Or you are just perfect, fine, Superman, everything good?
Well, I mean, as for Superman, you definitely know that I am not a Superman. Otherwise, you would have seen me in the movie. Um, at the moment, flying in the airline, I'm absolutely fine. But
Okay.
the initial part of my flight training, I had challenges with motion sickness
Mhm,
when I would vomit during my training. It's some, family sickness I inherited from my mother's side of the family.
mhm,
So even when I was young, traveling on the bus, I would, would, vomit every once in a while. But after a while, I got used to it on the bus.
mhm.
So when I started my flight training, it used to happen. I used to vomit on almost every training flight, and this was a concern because how can you continue your training when you are vomiting this often? And this when you fly at a certain point, when you have gathered enough skills, the instructor is supposed to release you to fly by yourself,
Okay.
which we call the solo flight. This is
Mhm,
every pilot's first milestone. And if you are interested, mine was on the 1st of April 2010.
okay.
So even though I had done initial, I've been doing well in the training, up to that point, the instructor was not confident to release me to fly solo or to
Mhm,
fly by myself because if I was flying there and I vomited, then who will be flying the plane?
mhm,
So it took time because they wanted to see that I was recovering, and I knew I was confident that over time it will happen. But as to the exact time, I didn't know. But eventually, it did happen when I got a bit more used to the aircraft. But it was a concern. At some point, the school authority even gave me a watch, which they said was used by patients undergoing chemotherapy, and this watch was supposed to send signals to help me to deal with this situation. I refused to wear it, you know, because I thought that okay, if maybe my body will get used to it, and the day that I didn't have it, what would happen?
right.
So eventually, I went through this ordeal for a little bit, but after a while, let's say after about 3 or 4 months of flight training, so let's say about 6 months, probably that issue was resolved.
And your solo flight went well. Looking back, was that a happy flight for you?
Oh yes, it was. It was a good opportunity. From that solo flight, you get to have other longer flights flying solo. And I remember the first long flight I did as flying as a solo, pilot, a student pilot flying. I was flying at 5,500 feet,
Mhm.
and I felt like I was on top of the world. At 5,500 feet, and I was alone there in that plane, and I was thinking, well, I mean, if I don't die today, maybe I'll live really long because he's going to help me up here if anything happens, But yeah, we went through that phase, and eventually, they say the rest is history.
Uh, that's amazing. Well, thank you for thank you for sharing that story. I'm sure that the landing of that solo flight meant a lot to you.
Oh, we did. It did.
You felt almost like vindicated or certified in terms of your training, right? You feel like, oh,
Exactly.
I've
Like, okay,
I've finally arrived. You are
yes,
now
I finally
ready to
arrived.
take
Oh,
on the
happy
world.
now. Yes, I am.
Okay, interesting. Oh, thank you for sharing that story. Okay, so all right. So I think, and looking back at your own life, your career, and all the hours of training and flights and all that, what are some of the life lessons that you have learned along the way?
Well, I think it's important as people, whatever stage you are in life, to never give up, or at least never give up easily.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, at some point, depending on the situation, there may be some instances where you feel that you have reached the end of that road. It's not a bad thing for you to change course. At least never give up easily. I've had challenges at some part of the journey, even from getting a visa to study in the US. I was denied a visa.
You were?
Yes, I was.
How did you take that? Did you cry for a week, or what did you do?
Well, it's interesting because in those days, I used to make a lot of notes about my experience. And recently, I happened to chance on some of those old notes. And I had written in those notes the night that I was denied the visa. I was very frustrated. I was heartbroken. I was at some point even thinking that, yeah, maybe it's not God's will for you to take up this path. And, these are documented. So, but after that phase of emotional heartbreak, you sit back, and they gave me a letter from the embassy that said that I could not petition, I could not reapply until after 1 year.
Wow. So you had to wait for a whole year?
This is what they were saying.
Okay.
This is what they're saying. And that's why I'm saying that I have learned the lesson not to give up easily. Because even though they said after the initial phase of most counter and I spoke to one of my friends, he said, look, I think we should take this as a suggestion. So, which is exactly what we did. Even though the embassy had told me that I cannot petition them, I cannot be applied to 1 year, I took it as a suggestion. And then I thought, okay, what can I do about it? And then to keep a long story short, I sent them a petition, which they said I couldn't do. They reviewed my application and they invited me for a second interview, which.
Oh, so you took what the embassy told you as a suggestion, not an order.
I did.
Wow, that's a lot of perseverance.
It does. It is.
And so after the interview, that is when you were given the visa to pursue your dreams?
Yes. The second interview was by the boss.
Okay.
The boss of the chief consular officer. So if the boss is interviewing you, you know that it's not going to be an easy one.
Yeah, the stakes are quite high.
Yeah, that's what it was very fair. And he did a much better job than the person who interviewed me initially. And he interviewed me and then he gave me the.
Wow, that's an interesting story in itself, because I know it will resonate with many people. That tenacity, that endurance, that perseverance, that is so fundamental. We will not be having this conversation if you had given up.
Absolutely. We would not. And then again, as we talk about lessons, maybe I can just stay on this bit of not giving up. In flight school, I had my own fair share of financial challenges. You train a little bit, you're out of money. You stay at home a little bit, you have a little bit of money, you fly again, you're out of money. And this cycle went on. At some point, one pastor that I respected very much, even thought that, well, maybe, I won't say that he gave me bad advice.
Right.
But he was equally concerned. Said, well, maybe after you are facing all these challenges, maybe it's not God's will for you to do this path. Again, I took that as a suggestion as well. I mean, people cannot give advice. It's up to you, the individual, to decide whether you take that advice or not, whether you are really convinced that that's right. But I stayed true to what I was doing, and I was complete.
Right. Well, it seems that you've had your fair share of challenges then.
Yes, I have.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. It almost feels like that's a conversation on its own. So if I'm following your story, after your flight training, you came back to Ghana, and
Yes.
then you worked in Ghana for a couple years, and then now you are in Dubai.
Right.
How did that move happen? What inspired the move from Ghana to Dubai?
So it's maybe purely based on ambition.
Okay.
When I joined the previous company, it was a very good company, my first
Mhm.
airline, Africa World Airlines, very good company. After at the time, of course, based on the size of the airline and the routes that they flew, we had very few destinations. We did flights mainly within Ghana, and we flew also a few destinations across the border, Lagos, Abuja, and so on. Because of the nature of the operation, you get very familiar with it very quickly.
Okay.
Because every day you were doing a couple of flights. They had, I think, maybe 6 destinations at a time. So if you were doing these 6 destinations every day, not all 6 routes every day, within a week, you would have had the chance to fly all the destinations. So once you do it repeatedly for a couple of years, you become very conversant.
Yeah.
This is not what I dreamt of. They didn't, think that this is what the flying career meant. So right after, I think from about the second year mark or so with the airline, already started to fly with the big league. The Middle East, this is in general, this is where a lot of the big action happens. The Middle East is full of the big boys, Emirates, Fly Dubai, Qatar Airways, Air Arabia, and so on. So I started making plans in that direction. So that's how it happened.
And was moving to Dubai a difficult transition for you?
Well, when you move away from home, the feeling is not always quite the same. When I moved here, I didn't have initially. It could be it comes with a little bit of its challenge. But once you remind yourself each day the reason you made for the airline, for your career to advance, it makes it a little bit more bearable. So that was the experience.
But at the very least, you had Kenke and Cheto and those type of things there in Dubai?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, not initially, not in Dubai. You carry your Kenke with you whenever you go, but normally when I go to Ghana and I'm coming back, bag is full of all the good stuff, the Kenke and the powder and all the good stuff to help you stuff.
I fly as a passenger quite a bit. I'm interested in what your routine is. For a pilot like you, how is a typical day of work like for you?
So the typical day would usually begin from the day before, where you would update yourself with weather, check the current weather situation in your destination, if there is any storm approaching or whatever is going on there. Just to give you an idea. You'd also read information about the airport, check what kind of runway, it's the type of what we call instrument approaches that you need to fly, all the details about the airport. So on the day itself, usually I report to work 1 hour before the departure. So before that time, all the current information about the flight will be sent to you, the company iPad. So you review those documents. It has information about the flight, about passengers, about the altitude should be flying, about the weather as well for the day, whether to expect on the route and also at the arrival. So we review these documents before, then you show up for work. You show up for work, meet in the briefing table with first officer. We check our documents and then we discuss whatever we have seen on the briefing that the company sent before. So we discuss it if there are any concerns or any things worth mentioning, discuss it briefly. And then afterwards, we have a briefing with the cabin crew just to familiarize ourselves to them or with them or introduce ourselves. And then from there, we go to the aircraft. Once we get on the aircraft, we are in the cockpit doing our preparations, setting up the instruments and so on for the flights, the flight computers. The cabin crew will be in the cabin, doing all the security checks. And when they are done, they take passengers, we close our doors, and then we go.
As a pilot, like when you are flying, when you look at the sky, what do you see? I know the question sounds quite philosophical, but I'm always intrigued.
Well, if you look down, you have very big. Well, I mean, people probably won't see them. You see maybe houses and lights, if it's at night especially, or even during the day, you see houses and little squares.
Right.
and little this. And
Interesting.
it shows how we as human beings, yes, we can make the change, we can make a difference, but
Mm-hmm.
the larger scheme of things, we are very tiny when it comes to bigger things around us. It's a humbling experience as well. For you
Right.
to that when you look down here, you cannot see you. So better be humble and realize that a lot of things around us are a lot bigger than you.
Right. That's an interesting philosophical perspective. Have you had any interesting experiences flying that you would want to share with our guests? Does any particular experience come to your mind?
Yeah, maybe I can talk about experience relating to weather.
Okay. Tell us about that. Yes.
Yeah, I'm quite a few. I think on one particular day in 2017, working in Ghana with alcohol, encountered that we're coming into London and we hit a very big storm and it was very violent. The plane was going up and down and have to fight it through and fly and all of that. It was quite a challenge at some point. Just for the microsecond, it flashed through my mind that, hey, is this the end? But we don't have time to take such a thought to it. Fight on. And eventually we couldn't land in a crown. We ended up diverting to Takrady.
Yeah, you know how things happen up there.
I know.
Right.
How passengers come quite straight. But I would like to take this opportunity to inform your guests. The airline and aviation industry is an industry that is very well regulated. It's very safe. Be more confident.
That's very reassuring, at least for me, because I'm a little nervous when I'm on the plane. Kwame, I think I've really enjoyed this conversation, but I know we are running out of time. What are your future plans? What advice? I know a lot of young people would listen to this, people aspiring to be pilot or having their own unique dreams and experiences. From your life story, which is still unfolding.
Well, I would like to advise future eagles, future pilots, or who pursue other professions to keep the hope alive. And its issues can sometimes be challenging, but again, I will advise them to not to easily give up. I mean, I always say that you should not give up at all in isolation, because there are some instances that it may be necessary for you to change course when you have exhausted all options. But we should keep hope alive. For my future, I'll continue to fly. I love flying. As long as God continues to give us the health and the strength we need, I'll continue to keep flying. But yeah, I have other interest in art, which I would like to explore as well. So I think that's what the future looks like.
So your dream airline to fly will be which one? Not the airline, but the airplane. That's what I meant. Is there any ambition to fly the biggest airplane, or how does that work for you?
Well, my dream airline is the airline that will pay me more money. As for aircraft and the size of it doesn't really matter. I think on the passenger's perspective, sometimes passengers may think that maybe the bigger the aircraft,
right,
means something. Not necessarily. I think that the best airline or the best aircraft is the one that helps you to pay the bills. But yeah, I have interest maybe in future. I'll be happy to fly maybe a 787 or an Airbus A350.
Good. Fair enough. I totally agree with you. I have very much enjoyed our conversation today. Time flies. So if I were a pilot, I would have probably delayed the landing and the passengers will not be too happy with us. But Kwame, let me thank you so much for your time. It has been a very pleasant conversation. Thank you for spending your evening with us. I think we will have you back at some point to talk about your passion for art and other passions that you have. Thank you so much.
Sure. Thank you very much for inviting me. Yeah, I'll be happy to join you anytime.